The Italians have made some really good stuff when it comes to preparedness, especially in the equipment department, when it comes to some of their firearms designs, even their ammunition. But let's be honest, their greatest contribution, probably to the planet Earth, is pasta. And we love pasta here in this house, and it's something you can store for your long-term prepping needs. And a lot of people overlook it because it's not as inexpensive as white rice, and it doesn't necessarily store as easily, but it's still a viable option. And I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think pasta easily finds its way into most people's preparedness inventories. Now, I do want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and thanks to them, I can dabble in things related to Italian firearms or Italian ammunition, and even sometimes some of their freeze-dried pasta offerings. So a big thanks to Midway USA. Now, here's the thing. This is another long-term prepping food that is easy to store and easy to cook, and it's familiar. And I think that's very important considering a lot of people seem to prep food that they don't necessarily eat a lot or even cook very often. And let me tell you, cooking rice and beans can be difficult if you've never done it before, and the first time you try it is over an open fire in some sort of cast iron pot. So keep that in mind, okay? Pretty sure everybody's cooked pasta at some point in their life. Just saying. Now, what you want when it comes to pasta is going to be hard durum semolina pasta. It's one of the best pastas to store, and it just seems to last the longest because of its makeup, okay? It can last up to 10 years when stored properly, which is not as good as 25 years like some of the other dry storage foods, but 10 years is still a good amount of time and can definitely last you quite a while in the sense of an emergency and just having it stored away for that possibility. So 10 years is great. It's easy to cook, it's familiar, people love it, and it's a great morale booster because with pasta, it's something that people just crave. It's got that kind of homemade meal feel to it. And a lot of people think of pasta as a comfort food. So it's a good thing to have on hand other than just rice and beans, right? It helps switch things up a little bit. Now, what you see right here is 25 pounds of Clover Valley Angel Hair 100% Durum Semolina pasta. I got it from Dollar General, everybody's favorite. They pop up everywhere. How do they do that? But I bought this because not only was it some of the least expensive pasta in my area. Now look, first off, before we get into that, you can find pasta for much cheaper if you go buy it in bulk, if you get it from a wholesale supplier, if you buy it at places like Costco or even Walmart, you can find it cheaper. But where I live, these are some of the limitations I have, and it's something I just want to share with you all. Instead of trying to go really far out of my way to find the best possible price, I would suggest just having more food. Because yeah, you could save some money by going to Costco, but if you're like me, that's going to cost me more in gas than it would to just be to buy the pasta here locally. So just keep that in mind. But I'm using this as an example because I'm pretty sure 99.9% of the country has a Dollar General in their backyard. So it's $1 per pound at Dollar General, and this is 25 pounds. So we have $25 worth of pasta. Now, each pound of this pasta has 1,680 calories. So per box, you have 1,680 calories, which is almost a day's worth of calories, right? If we're going to go off of the basic standard of 2,000 calories per day. Obviously, this wouldn't be well balanced nutritionally, but it's still calories and you're still eating. So I would say that's still a win, especially in an emergency where you're actually relying on this pasta. Now, for 25 pounds, that actually equates to 42,000 calories. So for $25, on the table right here, I've got 21 days worth of food. That's pretty good for the price, okay? Now, another thing about pasta that you might not be aware of, and one of the reasons why it's good for long-term storing, is because it has some better nutritional benefits than white rice, okay? So it's got fat, 1 gram per serving, so not much at all, but still it has some fat, whereas rice basically has 0. It's got 8 grams of protein per serving as well, which is part of it being the hard durum semolina or hard durum wheat pasta because it's just high in protein. So 8 grams of protein per serving, whereas with white rice you get 3 grams. So you do get more protein from pasta. And it also has 2 grams of dietary fiber versus rice's 1 gram of dietary fiber per serving. So a little bit more in some of those categories, which are going to count when it comes to a survival situation. So that's one reason why pasta might be better than rice in some ways, right? Now, it doesn't last as long as rice. Like white rice, when properly stored, can last 25 plus years, right? So that's pretty much hard to beat, and it's more expensive than rice. Even if you get a better deal on your pasta than what I paid for here, you're still gonna be able to find rice for even cheaper. So that's something to consider, but hey, let's say you have 20 buckets worth of white rice stored away. Maybe it's time to throw some pasta into the mix, right? It might not be the worst idea, and especially if you live somewhere where you're really limited on your options for what you can buy, pasta might be a better option based on the value, depending on sales that are going on, depending on how expensive the rice offerings are that you have access to. There's a lot to go into that, right? So I'm just trying to bring this to your attention because it's still a viable dry good food option, and it's something I like and the rest of my family likes too. And a lot of people, especially here in America, eat pasta more often than they eat rice. So that could go into part of that equation as well. Now, if you want it to last 10 years, right, which it can do, which is still very good. Let's not try to act like, oh, well, it doesn't last 25 and 10's no good, right? The next 10 years, in my opinion, look pretty tumultuous. I think a lot of stuff could happen then. So I might even hit puberty again. Who knows? But 10 years is pretty good. So if you want it to last 10 years, what do? How do you store it properly for that? Well, it's very, very basic. And now you're going to use the standard prepper method. And when I say that, what I mean is 5-gallon bucket, right? You're going to need Mylar bag. This is a 5-gallon Mylar bag that's specifically designed to go into a bucket. You're going to need oxygen absorber. This is a 2500 cc oxygen absorber, which is designed to go with this 5-gallon Mylar bag. And then you got to seal the bag, which you can do on this because it has like a zipper system. Or if you don't have a zipper system, you can use a hair iron and seal it. And you can do both on this in order to make it even more secure and more airtight. But basically the goal here is to make it airtight and impervious to light and secure from things like pests. And that's just the same exact way I store rice and beans. So really nothing new here, but in case you're new to this and this is maybe your first time finding out about Mylar bags and 5-gallon buckets, I'll put a link to a video up here, the top of the video. Up here. We're going to go up here. And that way you can actually learn how I do it with rice and beans, and then you can apply the exact same process to pasta, okay? So, another thing I want you to keep in mind, and this is more of the practical part of the conversation. So if you don't like practicality, you might not want to stick around for this, but this is kind of important, especially based on our community here, right? Because look, we're prepping for a lot of different things, and lately a lot of the focus has been on staying alive when things get dangerous, let's just say. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that things are going to get more dangerous based on the current conditions going on around the planet. So all that stuff's very important, but you got to be able to eat to survive. And we all know that if you want to be in the condition to fight, you have to have energy. And to have energy, you've got to eat. And so although you might want to be investing in some of that fancy stuff that we like to talk about here, maybe of the Italian variety, you have to have food to back it up or else you're going to be worthless. Right? So this is still extremely important, more important, and a bigger priority, and way more affordable. So I don't know why it gets overlooked sometimes, but it is important for us to go back to basics every so often and make sure we're doing our due diligence when it comes to having food to consume so that we can be ready to defend ourselves in that scenario. And just for an example, this is another Italian delight that I just really appreciate. Fiocchi. It is just so deliciosa. But what I can say is that this box of 308 Winchester with 175 grain Sierra Match Kings, which are really good projectiles, made by Fiocchi, which is a lovely Italian brand of ammunition, will cost you anywhere between $30 and $40 for 20 rounds. So I've got 20 rounds of 308 in this box, and it cost more than all of the pasta you see right here. This cost more than 21 days worth of food. I think you should have this. I'm testing this out for accuracy and shooting groups here relatively soon when I have less snow on the ground. But without this, that basically means nothing. Or it might mean you're a bad person. So make sure you have your priorities figured out and make sure you're spending money sensibly when it comes to preparedness, but also keep in mind what you could be afforded if you were to compare some of the things that you're purchasing, right? A $30 or $40 box of ammo might be a necessity, depending on the scenario. And if you want to get the kind of accuracy that this can provide, well, it's kind of hard to get around unless you reload. But that's a whole different discussion that costs a lot of money as well, let's be honest, okay? But the fact that this is 25 bucks, and once I throw it in there, it'll last me 10 years, and I can eat pasta every day for, well, I mean, technically, sure, 25 days or even longer, but if I wanted to have a 2,000 calorie per day diet, not a $2,000 calorie, dollar per calorie, I don't want that much money in my stomach every day. But if I want to eat 2,000 calories every day, I got 21 days worth of pasta here for 25 bucks. So pasta is a great option. Make sure you consider it. And if you're thinking about adding it to your preparedness inventory, hopefully this gave you some good information about that. And if it did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the video because it'll just help everybody. Not just me, but hopefully the community as well, especially if you know somebody who might have a lot of this, but doesn't really have any of this. Because maybe putting it into perspective will give them something to think about. So, anything else you need from me at all, go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.